we're gonna go live. Start streaming. And
Nope.
we just started the stream, guys.
All right.
We're live.
Awesome.
So you,
Okay.
okay. So we'll do the intro and I'll get that cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just make sure it's playing.
Okay, so we are once again outside the machine shop on second deck next to our handy dandy giant diagram of the ship. And that is right here. We're right here on second deck.
This one's really
And lately we've been doing a lot of work in this area, in the aft end. In fact, our last live feed was from here in aft AMR.
I'll have to try.
So if you know this ship, you know that if there's an aft version of something, there will probably be a forward version, and there is. That's where we are going today, right there to forward AMR. So let's head down there now.
Okay. So where do you want to start?
Yeah, I just thought I'd check to see whether the stream is actually going.
I'm gonna take you by the post office this time.
All we have up is the
Is the audio going?
yep,
Cool.
perfect.
Viewers.
Of course, over here, if you go that way, follow the yellow rail, you get to Broadway. And
That's
here
my
we are.
commute to work every day for 2 years.
Welcome to Forward AMR.
And we're almost to work.
I'm on camera. Awesome. All right. Well, here we are. And David's over here. Marianne Fengler, we just walked past Forrest, our producer, and here's David Canfield.
Hey guys, well I'm gonna actually go mute the stream that's behind me so that we don't get a little double audio there. We'll get better at this as we go on. Hey guys, it's Dave the Battleship Tech guy. I'm down here in Forward Auxiliary Machinery Room. This is a space that I spent the vast majority of my time in. Last month we talked from aft AMR, which was this first space I was in charge of. But down here I was not in charge. I was just a worker bee.
So what is in here? There's a lot of similar stuff to aft AMR, but there's kind of some white stuff here that we definitely didn't have back there.
So this space, the primary thing in this space are two distilling plants. So what we've got is a triple effect submerged tube condensing water distilling plant. So it's kind of funny. This was someplace that we used to make water. We made fresh water from seawater. It took ocean water straight out of there. We boiled it, and we condensed it, and we used that condensed water to both feed the boilers and to use for the crew. It's kind of funny because we made 100,000 gallons a day in this space, 50,000 in each distilling plant. And it took a crew of about 4 people on each side to run the distilling plant. And recently I had the opportunity to get underway on another Navy ship, the USS Anchorage, and I asked them to show me their distilling plant. And they're like, we don't have a distilling plant. We don't have a still. We don't make alcohol. And I'm like, no, how do you make water? Well, it turns out they use reverse osmosis now. And so I was like, how does that work? And the guy reaches over and turns a switch on, click, like that. And I thought, well, times they have changed.
So what was the process like?
So typically, I mean, I can go through this at again, excruciating, gory detail, but it starts on our left here. We bring water out of the ocean. We put it into that first drum, if you will. And then we take exhaust steam from the main engines and we put that through the bottom of the drum to boil the water. Now, we use the steam that we made in the first effect to boil the water in the second effect. And the only way that we can do that is to make it, when you put a, when you put water under vacuum, you lower the boiling point. So the vacuum in the second effect is higher than the vacuum in the first effect, allowing you to boil the water with the steam you made in the first effect. We do it a third time in the third effect, and by then you've wrung almost all of the energy that you can out of that steam that you just first put in there. And so the raw water flows across from first, second to third, and then over the side. So
About how long did it take?
we made, each one of these is capable of distilling 50,000 gallons a day.
Wow.
So most of which is used by the boilers. So I've always said the crew is kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, that's what I've heard when I've come down here. The best water we get to the boilers, and the crew gets what's left.
Right? We should probably come closer here, only because your audio's cutting out.
Yeah.
So, all right.
So what's back here?
So over here is the chemical test kit. So we would test the water here and make sure that we had less than 0.02 parts per million of salt in the water. And so this was one of the first places I came when I first came back on the ship. There's a picture we tried to get them downloaded for the stream, but I'll edit them in when we post the video. But there's a picture of a very young me standing here, none of this, still a really bad posture, but no punch, testing the water here. And then in 2010, when I first started working with Pacific Battleship Center, there's another picture of me sitting in the same place. Bad posture, bigger punch. So.
All right, so what did you do with all that?
So not everything is here. So, but there was, I don't even remember the name of the chemicals now, but we'd take a sample and we would fill it up. It has been, 33 years, so I don't remember how far. But you fill it up and you put it into this little bowl and you would add so many drops of the first chemical and it would turn purple. And then you would add 1 drop at a time of the second chemical, and when it turned clear, however many drops you added was the parts per million. So it's literally a chemical test kit. We also had an electronic test, which there's one on each side, and it would, I'm going to go over here by where Forrest is, but it's this panel right here, and it would light up. So that's 7 different places that the water is tested electronically. And if you salt it up, then the meter would go into the red and the bell would ring and it would dump the water to the bilge rather than sending it to the tanks. Not that that ever happened on my watch. Not that I would ever have, a nickname of Morton or anything.
Morton.
So,
oh, sorry, that took me a sec.
So we were headed up the Mississippi on our way to New Orleans for Mardi Gras, which as a young sailor in uniform on Bourbon Street during Mardi Gras was, that's a good Liberty memory. But so we're on our way up. We're in fresh water. So I'm like, I don't have to pay too much attention to this.
Oh
right?
no.
So I keep tweaking the levels up because I'm gonna make a record. I'm gonna make all the fresh water, right? And the ship went around a bend in the river, and it kind of healed a little bit, and the water kind of washed up on the edge of the drum, and washed all that soap or the salt that built up there off, and all 7 of those cells went off at once. The whole panel turned red, and it dumped to the bilge, and everybody's looking at me like, how do you salt up the distilling plant in fresh water? Well, I didn't just salt it up. I couldn't clear it.
Oh.
And you are not required to take the watch if the distilling plant is salted up. So the relief watch came in, and they're like, well, yeah, see, call me when you've got it fixed. It was like probably 4 or 5 hours before I could get it cleared.
Wow.
In fresh water.
Yeah.
I even went down to lower level. We'll go down there in a minute. I went down to the lower level and took a sample out of the fire pump right out of the river, and was testing lower than the stuff coming out of the distilling plant. So I walk into quarters the next day. Lieutenant Braley's there. He looks at me. And he didn't even skip a beat. He just looks. He's like, "What's up, Morton?" And that was it. I was Morton for months on the ship. So. Anyway.
So what was this you talked about? Is something going very wrong over here?
So this is the emergency diesel switchboard. And this little piece right here is a ventilation. And you can see where it's been kind of fabricated to point away from the switchboard. That is a replacement that was not there the day that I reported on board. It just kind of came down, and like the other ventilators, it just had a little, tube, and you could move it around. Mm-hmm. And when the ship came out of the yards, the scuppers, those are the things on the main deck where the ventilators draw from. The scupper is supposed to, when it gets water in it, sit down on the deck so the water can drain out and then lift back up so that the air can go in. They didn't work all that well in the 80s. I mean, they worked, but they didn't work 100%. And sometimes they got stuck. And so here I am, brand new sailor. The first couple of things that happened was they said, you're going to work in forward auxiliary. And I said, okay, great. I walked down the ladder, and I came in here. We were distilling to the bilge, so there was steam just rising from the deck plates. It was about 110 degrees, 100% humidity. It was hot. It was nasty. It was loud. And I'm like, oh, clearly this is some sort of joke, because nobody would actually work down here. You have to understand, my whole family was in the Navy, but my dad was a personnel man, so he worked in an office. My sisters were corpsmen. They worked in the clinic, right? It was my view of the Navy was air conditioned and cushy. So of course I had to become an engineer, or a snipe as we call them. And so I came down here. So that was my first rude awakening. The second thing was I had picked up an intestinal virus in France, and I had no idea that I was sick. I thought, I'm scared, I'm young, we're getting underway, maybe I'm a little seasick. So in addition to being hot and steamy, distilling to the bilge meant that there were about 8 inches of water in the bilge, which was sloshing back and forth. So I'm watching the water slosh back and forth. The ship is moving. I'm hot. It's sweaty.
It's getting more fun.
Right? And so I was sitting. I'm going to pass our producer here. I was sitting on this ladder right here. I'm just sitting and watching the water run back and forth in the bilge, and being sick and unhappy and lonely and thinking I'd made a terrible mistake. And we hit one of those freak storms in the Mediterranean.
Oh.
So now we're moving, and we're moving a lot. And we heeled over to one side, and we took this wave across the main deck, which filled one of those scuppers up.
Oh no.
Which did not seat all the way. And so you can't quite see the ventilator from here. All I saw was tons of water cascading off of the switchboard.
Oh.
Which immediately burst into flames. And so, I mean, not really flames, more like lightning and smoke. And so...
That's so much better.
Well, And so Mac, who was the top watch, that's Michael McIntaggart. So Mac was the top watch. He doesn't even know who I am. I'm the new kid, right? He just looks at me and he goes, "Get out!" I'm like, see you later, bye. You don't have to tell me twice. But the worst part about that was, you never know. It's like, is this normal? Do we do this every day? I didn't know. So
What
you
in
know, it's
God's
kind of
name did I
bizarre.
get myself into?
Oh yeah. So we can go down to the lower level if you want.
Yeah.
We'll walk around
Go
down
that
there.
way. There's that ladder. There's the one. I'm going to take the fun one over here.
Oh, you're gonna take the steep ladder.
Yeah.
All right, fine. I'll see you come down.
Yeah. It's a little awkward, the camera.
It is a little bit, and we're right about the edge of the range for the mics, so
Okay.
they start getting titchy down here.
Mhm.
The beauty about using wireless in a big steel box.
Yeah.
So this is the lower level. It has a diesel, much like
Just like our
aft
friend back
emergency
aft.
diesel. It also has 2 medium pressure air compressors. It has a lube oil purifier, much like our friend aft. It has a fire and flushing pump right here, and it has a high pressure air compressor, also like aft. So a lot of the similar equipment plus the distilling plant. So
This is so cool.
yeah,
Oh, and I'm going to walk over here. It's also got one of my favorite spots.
where you're headed.
You know where I'm headed.
Yeah, I got a story over there.
Oh, by the way, I found this morning. Look,
Oh, here you
powder blue Le Tigre.
Oh yeah. Is it a Le Tigre or is it
Yeah.
a genuine?
It
Is
is.
it a genuine
It is a
Izod?
genuine Le Tigre, right there.
That's 1980s coming to get you.
Blue.
So
And then right over here, it's one of my favorite spots. This is the entrance to the forward catacombs. Yeah, it's good stuff. Didn't you used to hide out down there?
oh yeah, yeah, that was a great place to hide. But I would often just sleep here. This was actually one of my favorite places, and it's one of the pictures I wasn't able to import before the live scan. I honestly don't know whether I can do this without hurting myself.
Don't
anymore.
die.
But
It'd be hard to
used
get you out of here.
I used to be able to sleep right here, balanced on this. I don't even know how I did that because I'm gonna fall right now.
Don't fall.
But I have a picture and I'll edit that in so I can do a selfie. How's that? So I'm like sound asleep down here. You get sort of wrapped around something and off you go. If I stay here too long, I might go back to sleep. So anyway, that's not that I would ever sleep on watch, as I said, as that would never happen.
No comment.
So Mac, who I told you he was a top watch, one of his favorite things to do would be to find me sleeping. It was kind of a game.
Yeah.
Right? It's like he's a top watch. He doesn't know where I am. He used to sit by the space exit, so he knew I was in here somewhere. So he would try to hunt me down. And when he found me, he would usually drag the fresh water hose over
Nice.
and just hose me down.
Yep.
Right? I mean, so I'd come sputtering awake. And it was always kind of funny because you're tired all the time.
Yeah.
And your dreams are trying desperately to reconcile what is actually happening in the real world. And so often I would dream that, like the distilling plant blew up or the ship was sinking or, whatever. And then I'd wake up to have Max sitting there with the hose hosing me down. So kind of fun. So anywho, so Forrest, do we have any comments? Questions? Okay, cool.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things about the live stream, everyone. If you have questions or anything you want us to go look more closely at, drop that in the comments and we will go do it.
Absolutely. So there's another piece of gear over here that I used to work on. I refer to this as my beloved bilge pump.
Oh, yes.
John
I've heard you say
Goodson, who
this.
is a good friend of mine, actually came down and painted the bilge pump. So we used to have a little smiley face on it right there,
This
right
one?
in front of you.
Oh,
So that's the expansion tank for the bilge pump. This is a 1929
wow.
Davidson reciprocating steam bilge pump, which was a big ball of rust when I first came on board. And I was able to go up to the tech library and get the crumbling tech manual, work with the machine shop to rebuild the spindle valve. And I loved this pump. Everybody else hated it.
Did it
thought it
work
was
well
cool.
for you?
Dude, it would, that's just something rude just popped into my mind. But yes, it had a great deal of suction and did a good job of emptying the bilge. So,
We like bilge pumps to do that.
yes. So there are a bunch of other ones. There are at least 4 more. I think that each fire room also has one of those Davidson pumps. So I'm going to head up the ladder you came down,
All right.
reminding me that I am much older and fatter than I was when I used to do this. So. all
Oh,
right,
hey,
I'm-
look, you can really see the anti-vibration stuff down here on the diesel.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So 25 people in the stream. Hi, Alexa.
All right, you want me to come back up here there, or?
You said you wanted to play with the diesel. I'm actually watching you on the stream. So
Oh, you want me to try?
you can. Let me see if I can actually see you from up above. I don't think I can.
All
Oh, I
right.
can.
Can you? Oh,
Yeah,
I see
okay.
you too.
there you are. That's clever. Okay, so
All right.
you want to try tripping the rack on
Yeah,
the
I
diesel.
do.
All right, I'll come down.
Yeah,
just
you got to
in
come down
case.
because I can't hold this and do it, I don't think.
All right.
All right.
So right above me, I'll take a quick look up as I go down. That escape scuttle goes up into forward secondary battery plot, which was where they shoot the 5-inch guns from.
Oh.
And so I used to pop up and like sort of prairie dog up there just to watch them shoot. All right. so
Got to
there you
say, I
go.
would have done that too.
I'll
All right,
take
want to
that.
two-fist it?
Sure.
Okay, so I think you did like that.
All right. Oh, that didn't work out very planned.
That's not happening.
That
Did I
did
just
not
break
work.
the battleship?
No. That's actually pretty funny though.
It's not. So it's not going to work now.
It's fine. It's all
It's
good.
fine.
Yeah, put it back
Okay.
in there. All right.
Wait, go
We'll
back
correct
on.
the error of your ways.
All right, and now I do this.
There you go. Almost. Except it's not
There's-
going to stick.
Where's this?
Yep. Pull that. Okay, so that trips it. Okay.
It didn't do
So
anything.
what this does, this is your emergency trip. That's why it's got a cable on it, so you can pull it from elsewhere in the space.
Okay.
So that pulls the emergency trip, which causes this rack, when it's working correctly, to slide that way. These things, when you pull them, which one did you pull out?
That one.
Yeah, that one. That one, unfortunately, is in fact broken.
Oh.
So that means we're not starting this diesel today. So normally, when you this should be this direction. So the one in aft works a little better. We need to work
Yeah.
this one. But these are your 6 injectors for the diesel, and this is the overspeed or emergency trip.
Okay.
So either it overspeeds or you pull the cable. It would snap this rack this direction,
Yeah, I feel sad that I didn't get the pop there.
right? The spring in here it's still a little tight. You won't be able to get down here, but it needs a little maintenance. But it would pop that, and so when the rack traveled this direction, all of these would be this way. This
That's
way.
the broken one.
It is. Aft was not broken. Set that there. All of those would be this way, which is cut out.
Okay.
So the reason that they sit here is because when it's reset, they're all this direction.
Oh.
And so, there we go.
Okay, now I need to
So-
try it again.
Okay. So the rack has been tripped.
Uh-huh.
And so now what we want to do is we want to reset it. So we're going to pull these out, and there's a little detent that they sit in. And then when you pull this, it resets the rack so that it's running again. So if you had a problem in a single cylinder, you could come down here and simply cut one
Oh.
cylinder out.
And that's without
And
the other
that's
one.
why it works without the other one.
Oh.
So 6 cylinders, American locomotive, 1930 engineering at its best.
Nice.
So, all right. She says, I want to do this.
Yeah. That
So
way.
Put it back. Put it back. Pull the overspeed.
Ah,
There you go.
now I feel better.
So, somewhere there's a picture of a very young me standing right where you are standing. Pack of Marlboros visible because all of us
1980s.
smoked. All of us smoked. And taking the readings. I have not smoked in a long time.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it still frustrates people, in my family. You have a pack of cigarettes. I'm like, it's 32 years ago. I should get a pass at this point.
Yeah.
But, so I was taking readings on there. I had
It's
a
in
bunch of
forward
pictures
AMR.
of me through here. So, yeah. So, all right. So I'm heading back up, I guess.
All right. I'll go up the other ladder this time.
So I heard Troy whisper in your ear because your mic was hot
Yes.
that he wanted
Yes, there's a story
he
apparently.
wanted me to tell. He wanted me. Okay, so I'm just looking at a couple of the questions here. Is starting that allowed? So we cannot yet start the diesels. There is a museum ship, the USS Cobia, which is a World War II era submarine, and they can start their mains.
Oh,
And
that's
I'm
cool.
like, oh,
Yeah.
someday, it's a dream of mine. But that day is not today. Tomorrow does not look good either. But someday we will
Today
start
is
them.
not that day.
Right? All right, so stories.
Stories.
So this was a story that gave me notoriety throughout the show.
I'm going to
Um,
be calling you Morton for a while.
Yeah, well, this was worse. So I'm standing here in front of a little open area on the number 3 effect of the number 2 distilling plant. And this area right here, we used to have sacrificial zincs that go in there. So it's there's a plate that goes on here, and there is we'd put a stack of zinc washers on it so that the saltwater corrosion would attack the zinc and
Yeah.
not necessarily the equipment inside, called a sacrificial anode.
Mhm.
So you'll notice right here, this bolt is different.
Yes, it
That bolt is different because there's helicoil behind that bolt, because that bolt hole has been stripped. Now, a young sailor says, hey, I don't want to tell anybody that I stripped that bolt out.
Oh, no.
There's 5 other bolts
Oh,
in there.
no.
I'm pretty sure it won't leak. So I was doing the maintenance on there, and I didn't tell anybody that I stripped the bolt out. And I torqued the other 5 bolts down really hard and gooped up the surface with Permatex. And we restarted the distilling plant. And it blew up. There was so much water coming out of here. And of course, now it's a CASREP, a casualty report, because it's no longer tanked out for maintenance. And so, yeah, and this is a critical system to the ship because we're a steam plant and now we're not making as much water. So the ship immediately goes on office hour or on water hours.
Oh.
And everybody on the ship knew whose fault it was.
Oh, no.
And it's, to the best of my knowledge, the only time we were on water hours in the 2 years that I was on board here. Because we made a lot of water. And we used to laugh at the little destroyers and things going, hey, we never go on water hours. You know, I'd take long Hollywood showers, whatever. Yeah. So, yeah, we were on water hours until the distilling plant got put back online. And it was 100% my fault. And yeah, I was schooled. I learned how to do helicoil. I learned how to not gun deck maintenance. I learned how to talk to the chief, you know, who was really unhappy with me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I learned a lot. Actually, it was right here, and I had told that that lesson to Troy, and of course he immediately wants. He's like, "Oh, you need to have him tell that because telling it to the whole world's pretty cool."
Well, like 1,000 people already knew. It's no big deal.
So,
How long had you been aboard when that happened?
oh gosh, like 4 months.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, it's brand new.
Yeah.
I was an E nothing.
Yeah.
E nothing. So I'm just zipping through some of these. I said good morning to Alex Peavers. Peavers are good friends of Tanya and me and the rest of the family. Say good morning to Tom, Croatian Gamer. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. How much does it cost in electricity to have this ship plugged into shore power? That's from Footed 16. It runs in my mind before COVID when we had it plugged in 24/7. Because right now we shut the power off to the ship, or the vast majority of the ship, 6 days a week. Prior to that, our power bill ran about $25,000 a month. So it is a significant chore to have it plugged in, and a significant cost. So I think I answered Lord Slayer's question about starting the diesel.
Clearly, we're not leaving that task to me.
I would love to start the diesel, but maybe someday.
It'd be cool.
There's some internal stuff makes sense. Blah, blah. USS Slater in a DE in Albany. So Mac, that I mentioned, used to volunteer on the Slater, and Slater is a great organization. They're people that we would love to be like. Their ship is beautiful. They love it. They take a great deal of care of it. I have not been to Slater in person, but I have talked to people out there, and what a great museum and great group of people. I plan to go out there because I'm trying to take my dad on a tour across the U.S. to hit all of the types of ship he served in. He was on Whedon, and I forget what class Whedon was, but it is not the same class of destroyer escort as Slater, but Slater is a destroyer escort, and so that's where we would start. I just wish that their ship, I forget how long the DE is, but it's not 885 feet. It's not 108 feet wide, and we have a lot more ship to take care of. But someday we will have it in the condition that Slater is in. So, hey, Derek. What are the catacombs? The catacombs they're basically just access spaces, wiring trunks, and equipment spaces
Ordnance stores
that run underneath the turrets. And so from here you can actually go up alongside a couple of the pump rooms, and you can get underneath the electrical deck. It's really just access and storage space, mostly access.
We shot a pretty long video down there a couple months ago. I will, when we edit this, I'll put the link in the description so people can check it out. But if you want to just go look when we're done here, it's just called Through the Catacombs. It's on our channel.
So Lord Slayer just said USS Whedon DE 797 was a Buckley class. It was kind of funny because my dad was also on DD 797, which, the name of that escapes me. Hang on, I will get there. He was on, so on the spot, I forget my dad's ship's names, but I remember when he was a young sailor, he went aboard DD 797. And they scolded him and said, we're not a destroyer escort. And they pointed him at Whedon. Well, then, he got orders to the, I can remember all his cruisers. And I'm not going to look it up. But anyway, DD 797. All right. Yes, a place you do not want to be lost or trapped in. Indeed.
What, the catacombs?
The catacombs.
Yeah, it's full of the smallest hatches you've ever seen in your life. You have to be, Gumby to get through them.
I'm so much fatter than I was. All right, so come over here. I got one thing I want to show you.
I was about to ask you.
I'm going to set this down. I'm right at the edge of the mic's capability, so hopefully I won't cut out too badly.
Grab it and bring it back.
So this piece of equipment right here, this is the top of what was our Amarillo Jug. And
I
want
have to explain that.
I want to see, I'll get it there. I'm going to get my phone out because I'm going to get a light going behind this. So Amarillo, spelled Amarillo, is a non-distilling descaling agent. So it's a really nasty caustic chemical that will not distill with the water, but will keep the pipes or the tubes in the distilling plant from scaling up.
Oh, that's crazy.
And so we would mix it, and then it's injected in with the raw water and carried through, and it goes over the side. So there's my flashlight. Okay, so this is the top of that, and you can see that it has been clearly defaced by a bunch of miscreant sailors. So DTJ, that stands for Donald Troy Johnson. He's a friend of mine. Just recently got back in contact with him. Troy, as he is wont to be called, is in Oklahoma now with a couple other friends of mine. So on board 86 to 90. So you see Doom was here. Here's, let's see, what else do we have up here? We have, usually I find, oh, that's Carl Kramer's initials. So I served with him. That's FTN, that stands for something about the Navy. And here's Carl Kramer. And if you look here really carefully, you will see that EN3 Canfield, November 13th, 1987 to July 19th, 1989. So somebody named EN3 Canfield defaced that government property right there. I can't imagine who would do such a terrible thing. So
I'm going to turn it. I'm catching more light than lettering.
Sorry.
Right there. That's great. There you go.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
So there we are. Some people's kids, huh?
Some people.
Uh,
All right, I'm going to come over here and peek.
So I cannot turn the light off on my phone. Electronics escape me. You know, if only I knew a tech guy.
Like I said, Nikki524, thank you for keeping the ship and its stories alive. Much respect from Denmark. Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So I've told my stories. I've answered some questions. Are we done?
I think we're just about done. Anybody have any last minute alibis, questions?
Comments? Rude gestures? All
Looks
right.
like that's about it.
All right. Before we end the stream, I'm going to walk over here back to where we started. I think we got our audio sync issues. This is our little virtual cube that we've been working on with its little private network. This is our producer, Forrest Hippensteel.
Yay, Forrest!
Who is actively avoiding being on camera. And I want to
or passively.
I want to thank Forrest. And I want to thank Troy Vale, who came in early today, and another member of the crew, Jim Orr, who rigged the V-Cube down here. Again, everything on the ship is a crew effort. It's a team effort. We can't do it without the rest of the crew. It is such a pleasure and an honor to be part of such a great team. So,
Yeah.
all right, without any other questions, any last second questions, we will, I don't see any. So. Oh.
Lots.
Yeah, I don't. So not having been in a cook, although I did do what we called mess cooking, which is somewhat pejoratively called mess cranking, and I was told by an active duty sailor I'm not allowed to call it that anymore because that's some sort of hazing. But everybody did 3 months of mess cooking, which is basically cleaning, sweeping, swabbing, serving food, running the scullery. But I never, was a cook, so I don't know exactly how much, but if you go to our website, there's a lot of information on there. Yeah. And I know our curator, Dave Way, has spent a lot of time talking about food and food stores, and I think Jolene DeRage, our development vice president, is looking forward to starting some sort of foodie or cooking show, on board the ship, or at least related to the ship, where a lot of those questions are going to be answered. So go ahead and look forward to that. We should have that shortly.
Do you have a bullseye in the Space Show?
Oh, yeah.
All
right, go. You find one or I'll find one.
It's
I got
behind you.
one.
I was going to say it's behind you.
Right there.
I know that it's behind you. So this
There you
space
go.
used to be Alpha TAC 58 TAC Echo in the old World War II scheme. And to be completely honest, I have no idea what the space is under the new scheme because those new numbers weren't put in until after the ship was decommed. So
I love this
it's
stuff
7
too.
TAC something. So
All of this stuff is completely fascinating.
yeah, that's an armor connector.
Yeah.
And again, Mike Getcher, who's our chief operating officer, and The next best thing to a naval architect has done quite a bit of information on armor and how it's connected and how those systems work together. I would love to wax eloquent on them, but honestly, I need to defer to somebody who knows more than I do.
I found the hydration police too.
Yep. There you go. All right.
All right.
Questions on politics?
No ghosts up here, only an aft. So that's all I had. Let me walk back. I'll take a look at one last look through there myself instead of invading force space and looking over his shoulder.
You're not stalkers. It's fine.
So,
Look, phone booth.
real question: how much food? Okay, so Alexa, that was from you. Hopefully, I answered that. Hauntings not here.
Tube steak.
So the frame markers there. There should have been a bullseye behind the ladder. Honestly,
Behind the ladder.
over there, but a lot of stuff was painted when she was in mothballs.
No.
And so I'm just going to come over here where I thought that was. I know you were looking at the frame markers, but there it is. Here it is. So this is your bullseye 7790 Echo, Division Responsible A. So you can actually see the difference in the paint at the top where they went over Alpha Tech 58 Echo and Division.
Oh, is that why the
Responsible A.
offset?
That's why it's different at the top.
Huh.
So they changed the numbering to standard Navy numbering when the ship went into MARAD because the people maintaining the ship in mothballs needed to be able to get around. But when I was stationed on here, all of the bullseyes were the World War II style.
Oh.
So there's two places on the ship that still have a World War II bullseye. One of them is in the ship's classroom, which is pretty cool. There's one on each wall.
The O3 classroom?
No, the
training.
the second deck training room, and then the other one is in the carpentry shop.
Oh.
So it's behind the door. The World War II era one is behind the door. So
Cool.
clearly they missed it.
So before we go,
Yeah.
we forgot. I love this thing. Should talk a little bit about that.
Oh, that's also called a bullseye sometimes. So that's just an observation window that looks into the first effect shell of the distilling plant. So when you looked in there, you could see the water boiling, but there was no light. You'd have to have a flashlight to look in there.
Yeah.
And although the equipment manual says that you can have the water up that high, you would not make fresh water if your levels were that high. Trust me on that one.
Jim Orr told me that to do maintenance, you'd have to take this entire plate off to get to the tubes inside.
So true, but you did not do that very often.
I don't think
So
so.
retubing typically occurs in the yards.
Mhm.
So there are a couple access plates on the front and back. If you have a leak in the tubes of this, it is not as critical, and here's why. This is not main steam, but auxiliary exhaust comes in through this weight-loaded regulating valve, which is over here, and comes into the tube nest. So this is the source of heat, and it is under reasonably high pressure, at least until it gets to the weight-loaded regulating valve. So if you were to have a leak in the tubes, it would be you have a higher pressure in the tube than you have without it. It would blow that steam into the raw water. We do take the exchange of heat takes place and the water's condensed and then it's pumped back because we do recycle our fresh water. Unlike a railroad locomotive that once the steam is used, it's gone. We recycle that as much as we can. It is a lossy system, so there's stuff where you're constantly adding water back to it. But we do have a main condenser and we condense it and we reboil it over and over and over. And we test that. There's another pump down there called the coil drains pump where we used to have to take samples once an hour and it would go to the oil lab to make sure we were not putting salt into the feed water. If you did, you would have to shut this down and you would have to either plug the tube or replace the tube that had the hole in it.
Wow.
So that's why it's really important to run the Amarillo. We would run a citrus shock to run citrus through it in order to break the scale off of it and make sure, because scale will cause the tube to heat unevenly. If it heats unevenly, it bends unevenly, and that's where you get places where it'll wear through.
Wow.
So.
Question
All right.
here, what happens to the salt once it's distilled?
Good question. I didn't know.
So it's kind of interesting. I was going to show it down there, but it's kind of munched up. So there, we call it brine. Once we boil the fresh water out of it, it's brine. And so the salt water or raw water comes from the ocean, goes into the first effect. Some water is boiled off. It then goes into the second effect, and your salinity is higher in the brine in the second effect because, right? So we boil more off on the second effect. And then it goes into the third effect where the salinity is even higher, and we boil more water off, and then it goes over the side. And so there is a reading by using a hygrometer called the brine density reading, and it's the last thing that you check before the brine goes over the side. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think anybody that stood this watch understood what brine density was, and I'm pretty sure nobody took the reading because the place to take it is actually plumbed wrong down there. I was tracing it when we first opened the museum, and I'm like, that you can't get a reading on there, but it was always correct, you know. And as it turns out, it probably was correct because we ran these almost at capacity, and we distilled a lot of water, and we tested the water, and it was good water. And none of us really understood what that reading was for anywhere, how to adjust it. Well, then I got out and I got a degree in physics, and I was like, you know, that's the only reading that you need to tune this plant.
Oh my Lord.
But it was tuned because it was efficiently producing water. So I can tell you the reading was correct intuitively simply by the volume of water that we were creating. But we used to do something that I learned when I actually got into engineering called guess and check. So we would, you know, tweak something and, you know, did it go up or down? Did it stay fresh? Did it salt up? Well, I tweak it a little bit more. And then once it was set, it was like, you don't touch it. It's like, just don't touch it. Just make water. So, yeah.
Were you pretty good about telling the other watches, hey, we fixed, leave it alone?
As soon as you mess with it and it salts up, you don't have to be told. You're like, it's making water. Just don't look at it. It's fine. You know, and you would take the readings. You want to make sure that the vacuum was correct because that affected the efficiency. But basically how you tuned this was where you controlled the rate at which water moved from the first to second effect, the rate at which water moved from the second to third effect. So how long it was at transient in the shell, and the level of vacuum which determined at what point the water would boil, and the temperature and pressure, your input steam. And so those are the things that you had control over, you know, and you could tweak the level of vacuum, but even that, if you didn't know what you were doing, was hard to do. So.
Okay.
We have a comment here, observation that it looks like it'd be hard to work in this space. A little bit.
Yeah.
Aside from running, but we've actually hated it.
So,
Thanks, by the way, Chris. Appreciate that question.
it's hard to work in the space. I mentioned when we first started the stream that when I first came down here, I felt like it was some sort of joke that people didn't actually work in here. I mean, come on. I was much skinnier, which made it easier to get between some of these spaces. The average age of the crew member down here when I was working down here was 19.
Wow.
So I joined the Navy when I was 17. We are now, so, you know, even the people that were supervising were only like 20.
Mid-20s.
And mid-20s, you were old. Are you kidding?
Wow.
And so we were pretty young crew. We were pretty, you know, I look back at it, it ran about 105, 108 degrees down here. And it's tight. And when you get onto the lower level, I can stand up, but only between certain things.
Yeah,
So
I
you learn
noticed
to
you
kind of
ducking
hunch.
where I wasn't.
And you know, I can still run through that space, and it's muscle memory. I just remember where to go. But it was challenging. There are 2 workbenches down below that we did a lot of the maintenance on. You'll notice they are in the bilge. So if you're distilling to the bilge, you are standing in water while you do that, and you're standing in hot water because when you're distilling to the bilge, it's exiting the distilling plant at 100+ degrees.
So let me get this straight.
So-
There would be standing water down in that lower level.
Not often, but every place that you saw it where it was red leaded or
Yeah.
that terracotta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was It was probably I don't know that today's Navy would allow this as an acceptable workspace.
Yeah, right.
In the 80s, we were like, hey, we're battleship sailors.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. I will mention once here, and I don't know who all is watching, but I have a number of generations of Navy in my family, and I think a lot about what the Navy would do today because we're about to add a generation. Not one of my children, not two of them, but three of them are contemplating joining the Navy. So we'll see what happens with that. There's no guarantees, obviously, but it looks like they're going to pick that mantle up. It was
That's
handed
cool.
to me by my dad, and hopefully, if it moves the right direction, then we'll have some other video stream that we can show that off. So we'll
Yeah.
see. All right. Any other questions? Comments?
Talk about the pipe installation, perhaps.
Talk about the pipe insulation. All right, so this is called lagging, and this is the first place where most of our visitors go, oh, that's full of asbestos. It is absolutely not full of asbestos. This is fiberglass insulation wrapped in a cloth blanket and painted. You can tell by these metal tabs here that it is not asbestos because the asbestos blankets were not anchored this way. This is called pipe lagging. It is designed to keep you from burning yourself on these. These are
that's
heat
nice of them.
exchangers. And so the system runs pretty hot. So all of this was redone in the 1980s when she was recommissioned. And, when we talk about environmental cooties and whatnot, most of those honestly were removed in the 1980s, and then what was left from the 80s was has either been mitigated or we're working on removing now. So
All right. Anything else?
all right, I'll take one more stroll over, one more brief glance, and well, I think
Parting
we'll call
shot.
this, parting shot. We'll call this a wrap. Somewhere, every time I come down here, I have more memories. I have a picture of a helicopter that we built out of a trash can and a yardstick and a bunch of stuff that we put together, and then we put it in front of the ventilation that's right in front of me here that has a black thing over it, so that the prop would spin in the air coming from the ventilation. It's kind of cool.
Whoa.
So, oh, thanks, Derek. Appreciate that. So,
What did he say?
he said congrats on the kids. So, so Chris, you're very welcome. Guys, can this system be scaled up to produce fresh water for cities around the world? So the answer probably is no. And the reason is because something like a reverse osmosis system is going to be so much more efficient. We are literally boiling water and condensing it, which is takes a tremendous amount of heat energy to do that. So the ability to desalinate for something the size of a city, this is probably not the right answer. I mean, you could use it in the same way that Titanic used effectively railroad locomotive boilers, what are called fire tube boilers. But when you look at things that used fire tube boilers, large ships, the number of boilers kept increasing. It's like, oh, they had 40 boilers. Well, you could not, I didn't say that Titanic had 40 boilers.
did
I
not.
said, but the, you could have multiples of these, but they don't scale by getting bigger. They would scale by having more of them. And at some point, the amount of energy required to boil that much thermal mass in water would probably be tremendously inefficient compared to other options for desal.
Yeah.
So, all right. Okay, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining me around the ship. I love doing these. The next live stream that we're going to do is a little more poignant. That's going to be our April 19th memorial. We will be doing that. We will be reading the names, ringing the bell, and honoring my shipmates that lost their lives in the 1989 accident on in Turret 2. Unfortunately, Los Angeles will not let us have an event, and so we will be live streaming that and doing it virtually. And some of my shipmates are going to show up here and help me read the names and honor those. So join us on April 19th if you wouldn't mind, and we'll honor our shipmates then, and then we'll get back to crawling around the ship and finding cool places to explore. So,
Be around 9:45 Pacific in the morning. Yeah.
cool beans. All right, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Moran, for helping me out.
Thanks for letting me hang
I
out
already
and-
did the thanks to our producer and to the IT minion and the staff that helps us do this. Guys, without your donations, we can't stay afloat. Thank you for supporting the ship. Please consider donating to the cause at PacificBattleshipCenter.com or PacificBattleship.com or National Museum of SurfaceNavyMuseum.org.
Yes.
That's where we're headed. So again, thanks so much for your support. Have a great day. My name's Dave. I'm the Battleship Tech Guy. Marianne is my partner in crime here.
Hello.
Who drags us through the ship to do these things. And we will see you hopefully next month. All right.